go time.
The boys are back. That's right, Florida Man Sports is here with another exciting episode. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. This is Florida Man Sports.
Welcome back to Florida Man Sports.
Let's go.
Now on this week's show, we're going to go ahead and bow our caps to the 2023-2024 NBA season. A champ has been crowned, Chris. We say goodbye to a baseball legend. We have some NFL teams that cracked open their checkbook. But we're going to start things off, Chris, with the world champion Boston Celtics defeating the Dallas Mavericks in the
Dallas Mavericks? Game 5? The gentleman sweep? Where are you going with this?
Yes, that's what. When I point at you, it's the gentleman's sweep. That's what this was. That's what
that was terrible.
And then you
terrible.
said you didn't know what to do. Chris was
that
lost
terrible.
as usual. Didn't know what was actually going to happen. He didn't know what would I do. Am I supposed to say
terrible.
words?
I kind of got stuck when you called them world champions.
Are we doing words?
Kind of get tired of the NBA calling themselves world champions when they only play the National
Anyway,
Basketball Association.
that's every. I mean,
when you say things like that, you start. Yeah.
Anyway,
terrible.
so
terrible.
The Dallas Mavericks will go down in 5 to the Celtics.
Went down in 5.
That's what I just said. They went
we'll
down
go
in
down
5.
This is going to be a great show, folks.
But they went down in 5. Tell me about the Boston Celtics. How'd they do it, Chris?
Look, folks, I am not. This is Florida Man Sports. We've had 24 to 48 hours, depending on when you hear this episode, of digesting the National Basketball Association champions, not the world champions.
Okay, so what? The Serbian champions are going to beat the NBA champions? No, man, come on.
I'm
the
being
world
so
champs.
salty about this for 2 reasons, folks. One, well, and let me back up. Congratulations, Boston Celtics. They do deserve their congratulations. But I'm salty for 2 reasons. One, of course, it's not a Florida team. This is Florida Man Sports. A Florida team didn't get to make it to the finals. But the second reason, Johnny, that I'm a little salty is that this finals, now that I've had a chance to digest it, it wasn't good. It wasn't a good NBA finals.
No.
I get it. The Boston Celtics, they went to the finals in 2022. In 2023, they bowed out. So they were the better team coming in. But it was just a disappointing series. You're talking about games, Johnny, where Boston won. I think it was like 107, 106, 107, 105, something along those lines for those 4 games that they won. And so it wasn't an exciting series. I'm sorry. I'm disappointed. Now that I've had time to digest it, it just wasn't a very good series for me. So that's my first thoughts.
Honestly, real quick, I don't know why it took you that long to realize it. When we were talking about the conference finals, you were the first one to say, because we assumed, we knew Boston. We called Boston preseason. We called Boston going to the playoffs.
Absolutely.
We knew Boston was going to make it to the finals. In the Western Conference, when we had that great series with Minnesota and Denver, when we saw Dallas and Minnesota in the finals, you said it. You said nobody wants to see Dallas and Boston. That's going to be a boring series. Everybody wants to see Minnesota and Boston. We all anticipated it, and then somehow Dallas with the matchup issues did their thing. So you called a boring, terrible finals before if Dallas actually made it. And they did, and you're surprised by it?
Maybe so, but at the end of the day, when you do make it to the finals, I think in professional sports, the Super Bowl, if you will, for the NFL and, the World Series, when you get to that point, Johnny, you expect teams to step up. And Boston did that. Injuries aside, even in the finals, Boston steps up. Dallas did not. And so for me, this series is going to go down as a series where it's a missed opportunity for Dallas. You're talking about a team that ran out of gas. I want to get your thoughts on why they lost, but I mean, essentially, it looked like they ran out of gas. I see Boston. They play fundamental basketball, team effort basketball, coaching. Everything is on point. And then on the Dallas side, I see a team that is playing isolation with Irving, isolation with Luka, and nothing works. And so I'll leave with this as far as the finals. Great job to Boston. Not an exciting series, just calling it like it is for me. But I will say this for Dallas. Look, at the end of the day, the games define you. So after game 1, I get it, Coach Jason Kidd. You're like, hey, this got us to the finals. I get that part. But you got to be willing to make the adjustments depending on the team you're playing if you want to make a series competitive. And I believe it's my thought, Johnny, that Kidd did exactly what he did, what got him to the finals, and this is why they collapsed, and this is why it wasn't a very eventful finals.
You're not going to try to put this on Jason Kidd.
Absolutely,
it's not.
Absolutely, 100%.
It's ridiculous. You want to sit here and say, "Oh, he didn't make any adjustments."
He didn't.
Okay, he did make adjustments. However, no matter what adjustments you make, you can't change the fact that you need, which I've mentioned every single game for Dallas, they need to win. Luka and Irving need to produce. Irving was a ghost. He produced somewhat in 2 home games, but in every other game, he was non-existent.
But Johnny, who makes those calls? Who calls those plays to do those ISO plays? Again, Boston plays fundamental basketball, and Dallas plays a one-man show. So again, to your point, who's calling those plays then? Kyrie Irving's calling his own plays?
You're not going to take the ball out of Jordan's hands. You're not going to go ahead and take the ball out of Dirk Nowitzki's hands. You're not going to take the ball out of Luka or Irving's hands. He trusts those players to lead the team. Yes, he'll call certain plays, and he trusts them to go ahead and get it out to Washington or get it out to any open man to go ahead and make the play if it's there. Dallas couldn't shoot the 3. Their Luka was set up on a bunch of ISO, same thing with Irving, and they weren't making the shots they normally did. Luka, who had many great first halves, just ran out of gas, like you mentioned, in the second half. He just wasn't the guy. He would get his points. He got the triple-double. But if you look at the numbers, his numbers were a mess. They were terrible in the second half. He was been a first-half player because he just ran out of gas. He didn't have any more. And Irving, who we depended on, we've seen him win the finals for the Cavaliers. We thought, okay, he's going to go ahead and elevate the team to the next level. He didn't. I mean, he did a great job in elevating the team to get them to the finals, but ultimately they were overmatched by a far superior team, the Boston Celtics, who've been the best team this entire year. Why is anybody surprised? I mean, you called Boston to go in and win this in 5 or 6, and what happened? They won it in 5. They won it. I mean, every sports books had the same thing, the Boston winning in 5. It's not the biggest surprise, but we thought maybe that somehow Dallas, because of how
you underdogs. They beat the number 1 team in the West. They beat Minnesota. They beat the Clippers. Like, you would assume that they would have put up more of a fight, right? That's why it's so disappointing, man.
It is disappointing. I mean, not to Boston fans. They got the 18th championship. Hey, they broke the record. They had to tie with the Lakers. 18th world champ. 18. I'm sorry, you can't say world champs and Ron Chris. The 18th. Not an NBA champion.
If Orlando wins, they will be world champions.
Yeah,
just so we're all clear on that.
Ultimately, you got to give props to Boston. Boston just dominated. Props to Al Horford, the first Dominican-born player to win an NBA championship. 17th season, he went ahead and he did what he needed to do. Jayden Brown wins the MVP, Finals MVP. Tatum did not win it. But honestly, it could have went to Tatum. It could have went to Holiday. Porzingis is the reason they won Game 1. But Brown was the most consistent. He had a great finals. Tatum had some ups and had a great Game 5, Tatum. But Game 1, horrible. Game 2, horrible. But he made up for it. Still, all around, this was such a team effort. Well done. I mean, really, for me, the MVP belongs to Brad Stevens. I mean, that dude went ahead and brought in Holiday. He went and brought in Porzingis. He went ahead and made sure he re-signed Al Horford. He was essential in the draft for Brown and Tatum, even though Danny Ainge made those picks, but he was there as a coach. So Stevens is the dude. He's the guy.
I love, and you're right to give all these players and GMs credit, but what about Coach Mazzulla, man? Remember, you got to talk about.
You're right.
You're talking about a coach who last February was still coaching on that interim coach tab, if you will. And it's just incredible, man. He's the youngest coach next to Bill Russell to win the championship. The guy that everybody said last year, I still remember in the playoffs last year, he's not the answer. He's the reason why they lost. I remember that last year. And now he's a NBA champion. I don't want to say world champion. He's an NBA champion. So good, big ups to Coach Mazzulla as well.
Yeah, Mazzulla, he gets a lot of credit. I was one of those guys last year. It's like you're the reason that the Celtics didn't win it last year. They had a good coach the year before. It went to the finals, and then he got into that mess. So when you have the same dominant team, but really it comes down to, like I said, Brad Stevens, he got rid of Marcus Smart. He's like, no, you're a good player, but you're not what we need. Brings in Porzingis, Holiday, and the team is dominant.
And remember when that happened, people are very quick to ridicule when that happened. Oh no, Smart was the heart of the team. I remember that.
Yeah.
And and again, I get it. I'm as a Magic fan, I know when a player's been there so long, you're emotionally attached to that player. But to your point, it worked out for everybody, right? So.
It did work out for everyone. So if you win, it solves all problems here. But as the curtain draws on the NBA season, let's look at a few newsworthy events around the NBA.
Hey, if you don't mind, Johnny, real quick too, though, just before we put a bow on the Celtics and the series, it's clear that Boston, the East going forward is going to run through Boston. I think we can both agree on that, right?
Boston has a team to win multiple championships.
Right. So in other words, like cap space and all that, I already saw the cap for next year. They have everybody coming back. So yeah, you're absolutely right there. Does Dallas even have an opportunity, before we put Dallas to bed, to come back next year? They're bringing the same team back for the salary cap. Do they even have an option to be competitive, or are they?
No, it's ridiculous to say they're not going to be competitive. They're going to be competitive, but to say that they have a legitimate shot to go back to the finals with the West it's not happening.
I agree.
I mean, with Minnesota, with OKC, with Denver, what's the craziest storyline, which we'll get into, probably in the off season. There's talks of expansion. The Commissioner Silver has already said it's going to happen. And they're considering a team in Vegas. They're considering a possible team in
back in Seattle.
Seattle.
Yep.
So these things are not if, it's when. Mm-hmm. So when that happens, since the teams they're considering are where? Seattle, Vegas. Where is that, Chris?
Yeah.
That's on the West Coast.
Right.
So what happens? This is the storyline we're going to get into in the offseason. They're going to go ahead, and those teams have to play in the Western Conference. And then what happens then is that two teams from the Western Conference have to be moved to the East. And one of the two teams that are almost guaranteed are going to be moving from the West to the East, Minnesota Timberwolves. The Minnesota Timberwolves actually get to the Eastern Conference. Man, that changes so much.
That is going to be, because I don't think the NBA would do that. I think again, we'll talk more about it, but I feel like the NBA would be more pushing to open up more teams and open up two new teams in the East versus moving teams.
That's the thing, is that this is where you're incorrect, because this is already going to happen in terms of the two teams. Yeah. And the only cities, the only markets that they've considered are all on the West Coast. You're not putting a West Coast team.
That we know of.
That's the only thing that's okay. The West Coast teams are the teams that are going to get the expansion teams, period. That's what's happening. That's not what we know. That's what's happening. There's nothing on the East Coast that's even being mentioned, because it's fine. We don't need the expansion. Needs to happen from there. Seattle lost their team. There's a market for them. Vegas, 100% Vegas is getting the team. And then Seattle more than likely is going to be the next team. There's no teams, no cities being mentioned on the Eastern.
If you think, and again we're talking about this now, but if you think that cities are just going to go laying down and not going to make an offer for the NBA and offer options, you're out of your mind.
Of course they
look at what happened with Orlando trying to bring a baseball team to Orlando. There's no way a baseball team's coming to Orlando anytime soon, but yet we're still pitching for it. We're still
it's done. That's done. It's dead. The baseball team you mentioned, it died when the Tampa Bay Rays went ahead and signed for a new stadium. Once that happened, it died, because they're not going to go ahead and have. You can't have two cities in the same market. That's essentially what Tampa and Orlando is. So it's the same thing from over there. You're not going to have anything in the East Coast. They can offer $2 billion.
And that's what they did. And they actually said,
what's the city? There's no cities. There's no cities.
Against your point, they actually said that there could be a team in Orlando and a team in Tampa. But
no, it's not.
That's literally what he said when he petitioned for it.
It's never going to happen.
Okay,
it is never.
I'm just telling you what he said.
Okay, please. I'll go ahead, find the article so I can put it up here, and then we'll go from there.
Both can
because it's never going to happen. They're never going to. A commissioner is never going to allow that, because if I'm the owner, a established team in Tampa, you know how pissed off I am. If I own this team and you're going to allow an Orlando market to open up, all that's doing is stealing for my market share. That's all that's happening.
There's 3 NFL teams in Florida.
Yeah, let's see. Jacksonville, Tampa, Miami. That works out perfectly. Yeah. But if you're familiar with Florida, there's no way you can have a franchise, an Orlando franchise and a Tampa franchise in professional sports, in major professional sports. It's not going to happen. If the team was already here in Orlando, there's no way we would allow a team to open up in Tampa. It's not going to happen in baseball, not going to happen in basketball, and not going to happen in football. It's not going to happen.
In soccer, Major League Soccer?
Yeah, here's the thing. Nobody cares about soccer. Okay. Nobody cares about soccer. So you want to go ahead and you can in these little minor leagues. There's a sport that's been established in this country for 15 years. Baseball's been here for 100 years.
The Tampa Bay Roadies and the Orlando City.
Oh, the Roadies.
Yeah, and the Orlando City. Nobody. Soccer team.
Okay, let me repeat it. Okay. Nobody cares about soccer. Okay, like I get it, Eddie. I'm sorry. I apologize, Eddie. That's not.
Let's get a shovel for our boy here.
The thing is that this genius over here, I specifically said it's not going to happen in any major sport. What do we cover in Florida Man Sports? The major sports. That's Major League Baseball. That's NBA basketball, and that's NFL football. Yes,
I probably mispronounced it. It's either Rowdies or Roadies. I don't know. Eddie can correct me.
The Roadies probably makes more sense since nobody cares about soccer. So we went off on a little tangent there, talking about the expansion and everything else here. But back to what I was mentioning before you rudely interrupted me. J.J. Redick, there's talks of this guy now he formally gets an interview with the Los Angeles Lakers after the UConn coach turned down that job offer that the Lakers made him. So the Lakers are scrambling. They offer it to a former Orlando Magic lottery pick. What's your quick take on J.J. Redick potentially being the coach for the Los Angeles Lakers?
I don't really have much to say on this topic in the sense that, one, J.J. Redick is not qualified to be a coach in the NBA, not qualified to be a head coach in the NBA. And there's not really much to say. We already know the narrative. The narrative is the Lakers should have had the coach from UConn. He was the one that you would have been able to transition from having a competitive advantage with LeBron James. And after LeBron James was gone, J.J. Redick is not even a Band-Aid on a wound. He was and never was, in my opinion. So, Johnny, I have no opinion on this. I think that the Lakers are just grabbing at straws here. They don't know who to hire. They don't have anybody that wants to coach the situation that they've built themselves in. And basically, J.J. Redick is going to be the scapegoat. He's not the answer in the short term. He could be the answer in the long term if he would have gotten some coaching experience, came in as an assistant coach, and built a backbone. This kind of reminds me of, do you remember Walton when he became a head coach?
Luke Walton?
Yeah.
Yes.
This is what this kind of reminds me of. And we already know where this goes and what happened with him. So I think this is just a terrible decision if it happens.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Piggybacking on what you said, this dude needs experience. J.J. Redick has no business being a head coach of any team, let alone a storied franchise like the Los Angeles Lakers. Maybe he should have gotten some experience. He was able to go ahead and coach a young team. Maybe he had an opportunity to coach, the Rockets or the Pistons or a young team and develop to really see if you got the chops for this. But he's the head coach. He's going to be the head coach for the Lakers. Why? Because he has his nose firmly up the behind of LeBron James. And they had their podcast together. LeBron James doesn't want to be coached. He doesn't like to be coached. He's a know-it-all. So, of course, you want a yes man. You want to put the guy who hypes up LeBron more than LeBron himself to be the head coach. LeBron's on board with this. He doesn't care. He's all about it. This is going to be a disaster. But, he can shut all of us up because nothing shuts people up like us by winning.
But then what are you saying, though? You're saying that for the Los Angeles Lakers, the prerequisite for getting a job and being the head coach is to have a podcast?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
I know you're not, Mr. Retore. I know you're not. That's what I'm saying. If he gets hired, that's what I'm trying to say. So it's like, to me, it's so silly. And I understand he played in the NBA. He was a great player in his own right as a six-man type of role, and he had a great three-pointer. The kid out of Duke. I get all that stuff, but that doesn't qualify you to be a head coach.
No, it doesn't qualify
in the NBA. So why are we having this
conversation? Because LeBron makes these decisions. We've talked about this. This is going to be LeBron's 10th coach. He's responsible for every head coach firing. They're with him. He's the guy that, whether he wants to admit it or not, which he doesn't admit it, goes there. They look to him. All the ownership groups look to him and say, "Are you happy? Is this the guy you want? Is this guy what's going on here?" And constantly, from everybody, from Spoelstra to Mike Brown to his last coach, to Vogel, it doesn't matter. He's responsible for getting rid of these guys, even if they win a championship. The only GM that had the cojones to tell LeBron, "No, we're not doing that," is Pat Riley, when he said, "No, we're not getting rid of Spoelstra," who's arguably the best coach in the league. But LeBron, he thinks he's a savant. He thinks that he knows more than anyone. He doesn't want to be coached. So, of course, he's going to be on board with a J.J. Redick, who's been like the guy who runs his fan webpage. He's the main guy talking about LeBron's the GOAT. He wants to hear that.
Now that you say that, Johnny, let me ask you this question then, because let's think about this thoroughly. like, we can see the writing on the wall, right? You've heard that expression before. We can see what happens if this guy's here. So then we're basically saying that LeBron should be able to see that too. In other words, Johnny, here's my question. If you're LeBron James, why are you pushing or wanting this move? Because you're wanting to win a ring. If that is your goal, the writing is on the wall. Aren't you smart enough to see that him being the head coach does not equate to you getting into the finals, let alone winning a ring?
LeBron,
do you see what I'm saying?
LeBron talks a lot. LeBron knows more than likely he's not getting a ring. He's still going to try to get a ring. His focus right now.
What you're saying is he's drawing the white flag. He's like
he is. His focus right now is playing 1 year with his son. That's his focus. That's his priority. So if you're able to do that, and he doesn't want to deal with the BS with any coach trying to tell him what to do, he wants to be able to do whatever the heck he wants. And of course, you got your number one fanboy as the potential head coach for your team. Why not? To take it. You can do whatever the heck you more than usual and get to play with your son. He's going to go ahead and put a face on that he wants to win a ring. And, of course, he does. But ultimately, that priority isn't there because he's 40-something years old.
And he's going with J.J. Redick as a coach, man. Yeah. It's terrible.
J.J. Redick as a coach is a joke. But, hey, shut us up. Become the coach, win, and then we'll go ahead and eat our hat. So that is what it is here. But in other news, Chris, Jeff Van Gundy. Jeff Van Gundy, one of my favorite coaches growing up, is back in coaching. He agreed to be the assistant coach for the Clippers. The lead assistant coach for the Clippers. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess my first initial thought is why. I think about a coach like Van Gundy. He's the old school coach. He's an excellent NBA mind. He could land a head coaching job if he
was
wanted
offered.
to.
He offered several,
if he wanted to. So why? Look, let's not to kick back the Lakers here, but why not even consider the Lakers and be a head coach for the Lakers? Talking about experience and stuff like that. So I don't get it. The only reason that it makes sense to me is that he genuinely likes the players that are there, and he wants to cultivate and build them up, and he thinks that they can win a championship. Or if in the back end he was promised if Tyronn Lue doesn't do it, but Tyronn Lue just got an extension. Right? So there's no.
What Van Gundy and Lue, they're good friends, and remember,
and he got the extension. So there's not that, right?
So ultimately, Jeff Van Gundy, who was obviously, if you don't know, the former coach for the Knicks and the Rockets. Yeah. Great coach in the 90s. We all loved watching him growing up. Mm-hmm. He was a coach. He spent the last 16 years before last year, as one of my favorite TV commenters. He was the guy you watch. He was great at calling basketball games. Last year, I didn't know this, but last year he was actually on the Celtics staff. This year right now, he was the assistant for Brad Stevens. He was there helping him out, so he's going to get a ring.
Wait, he was assistant coaching?
No. Remember, Brad Stevens is the GM, so he was.
Assistant the GM. I thought you said he was assistant. Go ahead.
So he was the assistant to GM there. So he was there handling things. So it's only because of his close relation. That was after 16 years in the TV. He finally got into it. And he was offered several jobs over the years. He just wasn't interested. So for him to come back in coaching, I'm happy for him. Even if he has the lead assistant coach, he doesn't want to be the head coach, but he's going to be right there helping the Clippers. So I wish the Clippers well, only because of Jeff Van Gundy. So well done. Now, Chris, before we move on to the latest NFL news, FM Sports here wants to say a final farewell to one of the greats, Willie Mays. Willie Mays went ahead and passed away last night at the age of 93. Now, for me, Willie Mays is the second best baseball player of all time. Now, one could argue that he is the best baseball player ever, and that's a real argument, and that's a debate you can have there, and you're not going to be wrong. Now, Willie Mays hit 660 home runs, almost 3,300 hits, 300 stolen bases. Really, the only true 600, 300 man. Barry Bonds and Alex Rodriguez also have that, but come on, Willie Mays did it clean. We both know Barry Bonds and A-Rod, they kind of got mixed up in the steroids, so we do know
Just
this.
Kidding.
24 All-Star appearances, 12 Gold Gloves. 12 Gold Gloves, guys. This guy was the best center fielder in baseball. He was the best center fielder of all time. Willie Mays kind of cemented and really enhanced everything that Jackie Robinson did. Jackie Robinson went ahead and broke that color barrier, but Willie Mays showed that, yes, not only can you be really good at this game as an African American, you can be the absolute best. And Willie Mays was the absolute best. In the seasons he had 2 MVPs. Those 2 MVPs, I read an article, really, if they went by the statistics and the things that we go by to measure an MVP now, that Willie Mays would have about eight MVPs, because we take in consideration WAR, not just the stats. So, and that's also consider the fact that he missed 2 seasons because he went out to war and served our country, 2 years in the U.S. Army. Willie Mays, the greatest center fielder of all time, had the best combination of power, speed, everything. He was the GOAT. Respect to Willie Mays. The Say Hey Kid, rest in peace.
As we say goodbye to Willie Mays, I want to remind people that ultimately, and I know this is probably going to sound a little bad, but I'm just going to say it because I feel it, is that we wait for people to, I guess, pass, unfortunately, before we have opinions or we pull up Google searches on them to find out what they did. I'm not saying that's what Johnny did. I know Johnny is a Willie Mays fan. That's not what I mean, is that most people wait for the person to be gone or for something to happen in order for them to find out who they were, right? And so I'm not going to hit you with that stuff because that's what I would be doing in this part. But here's what I will tell you. I like to pull up quotes on people and what they say, especially people with the talent of Willie Mays. And so this quote is a quote directly from Willie Mays. And this one is to all the young guys, all the young baseball players. I know you have your children and like little Roger, for example. Willie Mays once said, "In order to excel, you must be completely dedicated to your chosen sport. You must also be prepared to work hard and be willing to accept constructive criticism. Without 100% dedication, you will not be able to do this."
Facts.
And so that's really all I got to say about him. And since we're on the subject of people who have passed away in the NBA, we also lost someone as well.
Yeah.
So, and in this particular case, the man, and this is kind of funny, but the man, rather than seeing Boston win another championship, he decided to pass. I just want to say that. Let's be real, But anyways, folks, that's neither here nor there. As we move forward, the NBA season did end. The NBA season is a unique one in the sense that as soon as it ends, the offseason starts, day one. And so we look forward to that. As that's cooling down, the NFL season is heating up, Johnny. And like you just mentioned now, we're going to go into it specifically with our Florida teams, the Jacksonville Jaguars, specifically with Trevor Lawrence, who just signed one of the most lucrative contracts for a quarterback. In a year where quarterbacks are getting paid, it looks like, the Jaguars decide to set the precedent here with Trevor Lawrence. 5 years, $275 million, yes. $200 million of that guaranteed. Got it, man. What is your Florida man take on this contract?
It's 200 or have 142 million guaranteed? It's 200 guaranteed?
200 million guaranteed.
Okay, so 200 million guaranteed.
Yeah.
It's a $55 million average. That ties him with Joe Burrow for the highest paid player in the league. With the exception of Pat Mahomes, who signed that 10-year deal. He had the largest one contract. That's over 10 years. This is less years, but still, he's the highest paid quarterback, tied with Joe Burrow. Now, I understand that Lawrence isn't the best QB in the league, and people are freaking out about it. Like, how can you get this? Listen, that's not how it works. Joe Flacco was the highest paid player in the league at one point. Matt Stafford was the highest paid. Derek Carr, Jimmy G at one point was the highest paid quarterback in the league. That's just how it is right now. It's the next man up is the highest paid. Whenever the next quarterback is paid, they're going to be the highest paid. So people are freaking out about it. That's just what it is. But Trevor Lawrence doesn't really have, remarkable numbers. Everybody's still waiting for that amazing year. And he's had decent years, good years, 4,000 yards passing. He's did his thing, but the Jags understood when they had this guy. With this contract, they're saying, this is our guy. This is our guy. We're going to go ahead and extend him now and figure it out from there. So I'm not mad the fact that they went ahead and re-signed him. It is a bit of a head scratcher for the dollar amounts. I mean, if he had balled out this year, because they didn't need to sign him this year, if he had completely balled out this year, I'm pretty sure they still could have got him the same contract next offseason, because he shouldn't be the highest paid quarterback, Chris. I mean, I'm not mad at the contract, but to have Trevor Lawrence as the highest paid quarterback in the league, tied with Joe Burrow, who's been to a Super Bowl, who's shown that leadership ability, it's a head scratcher for me, Chris.
Okay, so let me, because you kind of went both ways, and I want to get a clear answer from you. Number one, what is the grade? A through F. What's the grade?
It's a C.
Okay.
You know why it's a C, Chris? Real quick.
Go ahead.
It's a C. Okay. First 48 games. He's had 48 games to go ahead in his career. 20-28, losing record. He's thrown for 63%. Elite quarterbacks, you want to be closer to 70. Total yards, 12,204. Total touchdowns, 66. Turnovers, 55. Total, the team points per game, what their team is averaging, a little over 20.3. Now, I'm reading all those stats to you, probably like, okay, what's important, these stats here? These stats are almost identical. I mean, almost identical to another quarterback through his first 48 starts, Chris. You know what that quarterback is?
If you say, like, I don't know, Tom Brady or some crazy
No.
something, okay, we're gonna say
Daniel Jones.
Oh, Daniel Jones. Okay.
He has almost the exact same numbers as Daniel Jones, and people were freaking out that Daniel Jones got $40 million a couple years ago, and it wasn't many years, and this guy got $55 million, more guaranteed money over years.
Yeah, but
that's
you know what you're
scratcher.
saying, though, Johnny? You're just basically agreeing. You're agreeing with my point that I'm about to make here, and that is, it's not deserving. He didn't deserve that contract either, Daniel Jones. I'm so sick of these teams, man, that mediocre teams, because the Giants are a mediocre team after their Super Bowls with Eli Manning, and they pay these quarterbacks this money, and for what? Like, honestly, who are you competing against that you're offering this money? You made a really good point. He's got year 4, and then you got the option for year 5. What are you doing, Jacksonville?
Yep.
Your whole division got better. They stacked up wide receivers with Stephon Diggs in Houston. Same thing. They took Ridley from you. The Tennessee Titans did. And after the draft has settled, your first thought process after trading for Mac Jones is to go and pay this guy this kind of money. It makes no sense. As a Florida sports fan, I'm irritated. I'm bothered by it. A guy that in the playoffs gave you 5 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, 2 games. It's ridiculous. I would put this in the and I'm sorry I'm going to say bad, but in the dummy column, as I would the Kirk Cousins money that he's made over the lifespan of his career without winning any big games. So this is how bad this is for me. And so now you're talking about paying him Joe Burrow money. Let's talk about that. Joe Burrow went to the Super Bowl. Or excuse me, went to a game.
Oh, he went to the Super Bowl,
yeah. So you're talking about paying him that kind of money. Then why trade for Mac Jones? Why go through all of this? This guy's going to be there when the coach gets fired. Think about that for a second. So the next coach that comes in, because you've paid this guy this money, is going to have to be with him for better or worse. All around, this is not a C, man. This is an F, a solid F, Jacksonville. You continue to prove that you are the Jaguars, and I'm tired of it.
First F I've seen
Dude,
you
I'm
give
tired.
there.
I'm tired of it, man. I'm tired of
listen,
overpaying people.
That's why Daniel Jones got paid off of one good year, but the Giants were under the gun. Like are they going to be competitive? What's going to happen here? So that contract, I'm not necessarily mad at, because I'm like, all right, afterwards, obviously hindsight, you'd be like, what a bunch of idiots. But but they didn't need to do that.
I'm sorry to cut you off here, but keep in mind, it was a terrible contract. But at least the Giants could have said this: he had the best year that year, and so they overpaid him and all that. That's the argument they could make. This last year. The year before, 25 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. This last year, 21 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. Yeah. So he regressed, and you paid him.
Yeah,
it makes no sense.
It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. I mean, you're still paying him off the hype. This kid coming out of Clemson was amazing in college. He came in here, and it was like aired the hype, #1 overall pick. He's had good seasons. Not last season. The season before was a good season for him. That's 4,000 yards passing. It was like, okay, we're getting there. And this last year, he had a couple injuries, but ultimately the collapse that Jacksonville had and everything that happened. And you pick up Mac Jones. Say what you want about him, but Mac Jones, still the jury's out if he's going to be a good quarterback, and he still might be a good quarterback. So you have him there. Let Trevor Lawrence ball out this year.
You let him sweat it out for a year, Johnny. Let him sweat it out, knowing that Mac Jones is there.
And you still could have paid him the same money. I understand that the price tag keeps going up, but he's not an elite passer. You still could have gave him $55 million a year, either next year or mid-season somewhere. If you say, okay, this kid's balling out, let's go and encourage him and really and really show that the Jacksonville Jaguars know what the heck they're doing. But to go ahead and pay this kid like he's Brady in his prime, like he's Mahomes right now, like he's an elite quarterback is ridiculous. How are you paying elite money for an average quarterback? Joe Flacco, like I mentioned, at one point was the highest paid player in football. You know what he had to do? He went to the Ravens and said, hey, I want to get paid. And the ownership said, okay, well, at the end of the season, show me what you do. And then what did he do? He won the Super Bowl. Yep. He won the Super Bowl, and he was never close to the best quarterback in the league, but he earned his money. He showed what he can do. All the Jacksonville needed to do was go to Trevor Lawrence and say, okay, we're ready to pay you, but you got to earn it, kid. Get out there and show what you can do. Get us to the AFC Championship. Win some playoff games. Doug Peterson is in the hot seat. Doug Peterson doesn't have a long playoff run. He's done. He's out this year. He's done. And the Jaguars starting all over again. And like Chris mentioned, now you're stuck with that quarterback. Even if what happens, you're stuck with him. Maybe you never really get to see what Mac Jones can really do, even though you have him cheap as a backup. And that's going to affect your numbers. It's going to affect your ability to rebuild this team. And you know, I stand by my C because maybe this guy's going to ball out, but still, I'm not really mad at your F grade, Chris. But it's terrible. I can't believe Jacksonville Jaguars made this move right now.
Jacksonville Jaguars remind me of my counterpart, Johnny Cinco, in the sense that on the one hand, they trade for Mac Jones. On the other hand, they pay this Trevor Lawrence all this money. They talk out of both sides of their mouth. And you listeners that listen to the show know exactly what that means here.
What is this?
Let's
what you got a Czech Republic beer?
On the one hand, you've got Trevor Lawrence, who had that option, like we said, that 4- and 5th-year option. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about a franchise now that knows what they're doing with T. Higgins, who had very similar, has that 5th-year option.
Yes.
It looks like he's exercising that option. Tell me about the T. Higgins thing. Is this good for him? Is this good for the Bengals? What's going on there?
Well, it's good for both. At the end of the day, I know T. Higgs wants a long-term deal. Let's be clear, he's not getting it with the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm sorry, but they obviously paid that money to Burrow. They're going to go ahead and they have to choose between T. Higgs and Chase. Mm-hmm. Chase, we've talked about this, is one of the elite receivers in the game. And Higgs is up there too. Higgs is there. He's getting $21.8 million this year because he signed his tenure. He's going to sign the 20 guaranteed, fully guaranteed. But it's a 1-year deal. He's done. He is done as a Cincinnati Bengal after this year. If the Bengals do not sign him to an extension by July 15th.
15th, yeah.
He's an unrestricted free agent next year. And they're not going to do that. They understand. They're going for it this year. They're going for it. Hey, we're going to try it with Chase, with Higgs. But, of course, it's a business. You have to make decisions. You have a salary cap. And, unfortunately, T. Higgs is going to end up being a victim of that salary cap. That's why they could have went ahead and traded him. I still think, Chris, they were better served by trading him. Not because he's not elite. He's amazing.
They can still trade him.
I doubt they're going to trade him with less than a month to go. They can, but they should. They can get a first-round pick for T. Higgs. They can get a first-round pick, and then you move on. Do what the Patriots have done. Like, we try to resign you, but if we're not going to pay you, we don't have the money to pay you, and let me get something for you.
In his 5th-year option, he can't be traded during the regular season? In his 5th-year option?
After, right now, the way it's set up right now.
I thought July 15th was the time to re-sign or trade.
Yes, that's what I mean. Like, they have to re-sign him or trade him by that deadline. That's less than a month away.
That's a good point.
If he does not, they're stuck with him. They're with him, and next year, he's an unrestricted free agent. So by July 15th, they have to sign him to an extension. They're not going to because they need that money for Chase. That's just how it is.
I confused myself. What I meant to say by that was I get the part of the re-signing. I thought that if you're still on the roster during the regular season, even though you don't have an extension, right, you can still be traded. You can't be traded during the regular season?
He can be traded.
Okay.
But the team isn't going to trade for him unless they went ahead and give him an extension. Most teams, and for him, if he's smart enough, he's going to be like, I'm not signing an extension, even if you can trade it. I'm an unrestricted free agent. So he is never going to agree to an extension, even on a trade. So teams are not going to trade for him, give a first-round pick for 6 games. They want an extension. They know that. So he's not going to agree to an extension because from a business perspective, it doesn't make any sense since he is going to be an unrestricted free agent. You have multiple bidders. He's going to go ahead, and at this point, he wants his dollars. So he's not going to go ahead and be traded. If something happens before July 15th, then great. After July 15th, he's a Bengal for the rest of the year.
Well, I disagree. I'm gonna disagree with that. And so here's what I think. I think first of all, big ups to T. Higgins' agent.
Big ups. Boop, boop.
And to T. Higgins, because it takes a big guy, big man to show up, sign the thing, sign early. He signed early by all accounts. He could have continued to skip but he decided to not. He decided not to. So big ups for him. And then what the coach said resonated with me. The coach was grateful. He made it public. Hey, T. Higgins came to play. He came to practice. That's a big deal because what he's basically saying, Johnny, he's saying that, you know what? It doesn't matter that we're going to get divorced. I'm still going to give you 100%. And that is a guy who's going to end up getting the ball from Burrow. Because if he doesn't, now he's kind of shooting himself in the foot to get the best contract possible later on. So I think all around this was a good move. I disagree with you in the sense that July 15th will come and go, but he can still be traded. And I think that if the Bengals have the year that they expect to have, they're going to keep him. If they don't during the regular season, he does get traded. And not to jump the gun, but I like to do that here. I have a theory on where he should go.
Go ahead.
Jacksonville Jaguars. Team him back up with Trevor Lawrence. They played in college together. He needs the help. You've paid already your quarterback. That's the only way you make this up to me. So this may be another Florida man exclusive later down the road. But if he goes anywhere, it should be Jacksonville.
Now, I talked about this in months ago to where there was...
You talked about this?
There was two that we did. We talked about it, and I brought it up.
Okay.
Two receivers that I thought needed to go to Jacksonville. You had said Gabe Davis, and Gabe Davis went to Jacksonville. I said Mike Evans and T. Higgs
You just said Mike Evans, yeah.
are the two receivers that just makes sense to go to Jacksonville. They had the money before they spent it all on Trevor Lawrence, but they had the money there. But the problem with that is that right now, because of what he signed, because of the 10-year he signed, $21.8 million guaranteed this year.
Right.
21.8. So you trade that, that's a lot of money to eat.
Well, remember, when they trade, they don't get the whole 20. They have to decide. That's what I mean. They can decide to keep and eat Cincinnati to make the trade happen.
Yeah, they can potentially do that, but because this is a fully guaranteed dollar amount, the only thing that makes sense, they're not going to trade T. Higgs. Why? Even if their season's down, trade T. Higgs unless the team's willing to go ahead and take the rest of whatever's left of that season. If half the season's done, they're going to go obviously absorb half of that 21 mil. Right. So it's dollars and cents matter obviously in any sport, especially in the NFL with the salary cap. It affects everything. But there's so many teams going on. I mean, San Francisco's making a bunch of moves. They gave Christian McCaffrey a raise. Juka's still trying to go ahead and try to get re-signed. He doesn't look like he's going to re-sign. So many things happen in the NFL. Yeah. But with T. Higgs, the Cincinnati Bengals, they handled it correctly. Jacksonville, I don't know what the heck you did with Trevor Lawrence, but it's done. So it's done. Hey, congratulations to Trevor Lawrence. You got paid, dude. Good for you. You better ball out this year, bro. You better ball out.
Absolutely. So many different things going on this offseason, and some stuff you take the good and the bad, right, Johnny? And here's some bad in the NFL. You've got the NFL Sunday Ticket subscribers
you were a subscriber for them.
Suing the NFL. I can't confirm or deny that. My attorney has. No, I'm not part of the law. I wish I was part of the lawsuit. But long story short, the NFL is battling for $7 billion that could balloon to $21 billion. What are your thoughts on this lawsuit?
The lawsuit, I'm explaining to you guys here, simplified, I guess. DirecTV was part of, had the Sunday Ticket. Now it's YouTube TV. But pretty much, if you wanted to watch in-network games, say you were a Green Bay Packers fan, and you want all the Packers games, and you wanted to, you could easily go to your cable provider and say, I want the Packers game and pay for them. The problem is that they make you say, okay, you want the Packers game? Fine. But we're going to give you have to get you have to also get Minnesota, Detroit, everybody else's team, even though you don't care about them, even though sometimes those teams are in network. They just bundled a bunch of crap together and you paid a premium for it.
Sounds like it's not the NFL's fault.
At the end of the day, it's business. I mean, everybody does this in business to where you want one thing. They're like, fine, we'll give you this. We're going to package it together. Anybody who owns a business knows that certain merchandise that you want, that particular company say, fine, we'll give you that, but you have to take these other things that people aren't really wanting to bundle it with that and keep that in your inventory. So it doesn't seem like it's out of the ordinary in business, but you're not going to get sympathy from me. You're a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate, and this lawsuit, all that's going to happen is that it's going to make things for us, for the viewers, more affordable. They're going to go ahead and it's going to end up being, when it's all said and done, that they're going to give the consumers more options at a less expensive price. So I'm all about it. But, man, I don't really see the big deal behind this Sunday Ticket thing, except the fact that at the end of the day, it's going to help us out.
Well, so on the one hand, if you wanted to watch local sports, right, because I'm a Tampa Bay Buck fan, You want to watch your local sports, you always could do that by paying DirecTV, as an example, $60 a month for your regular TV. But if you wanted to watch the NFL games, a Sunday ticket, to your point, then you have to pay that subscription. In that subscription, if you try to watch a Tampa Bay game, it doesn't let you. It tells you that you're not, because you're not in that area. And that's what they're trying to have. That's what essentially the lawsuit and the problem is all about, where they're saying, like, hey, you're basically making me almost double pay so I can watch my local team while I can't watch them, but I have to buy the ticket to watch the other games. For me, you're 100% right, Johnny. It's a business. If you don't like it, don't sign up for it. I get to watch my local teams. I'm happy. I can put on my antenna if I wanted to and watch the Tampa Bay Bucks play. The problem lies for the businesses. I remember those days. DirecTV at Gators, for example, the Sunday ticket, the local channels having to pay. That's where that lawsuit, I think, originated, and they may actually have a case.
Yeah.
So, but at any rate, to your point, Johnny, I think it's great in the sense that the consumer, like ourselves, hopefully will save some money in the long run. I tell you one thing, it's not going to stop me from watching football. So,
No,
so
the only example I can think of to where it affected me, nothing to do with the Sunday ticket, but there's sometimes I don't want the local team. I want to watch. The closest thing I can think of was not that long ago, the Yankees playing the Dodgers. They're playing the Dodgers on Fox. And I'm watching the pregame. I'm watching Derek Jeter, A-Rod, these guys talking, hyping up the game, a series that every baseball fan wants to watch, which was a great series with the Yankees and Dodgers. And I'm getting ready to watch the game, and then they cut out the game to the Guardians and the Marlins. I couldn't watch the Yankees and Dodgers. Instead, they gave me, because I'm in Central Florida, they think I want to watch the Miami Marlins and the Cleveland Guardians. Miami Marlins fans didn't want to watch the Miami Marlins. They wanted to watch the Yankees and Dodgers. So those are the type of things drive me a little bit nuts. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. It's a nationally televised broadcast with the Yankees and Dodgers, and you're taking that out because you think you live in Florida, you must want to watch the Miami Marlins. No. The Miami Marlins finally won a game last night after losing 7 in a row. But no, nobody wants to watch the Miami Marlins. Okay, I'm sorry. At some point when you guys learn to run your organization correctly, maybe we will, but not today, not this season.
Folks, if you're listening to the NFL segment in Florida Man Sports, just want to say thank you once again for listening to us. Please like, subscribe. We're on all those major platforms. Yeah, you guys. All the major platforms, so please like and subscribe. But as we said last episode, Johnny, we're taking each episode to talk about each division, to rank them top to bottom, where they should be. The Florida Man exclusive, Johnny. Now we're up to the NFC West.
NFC West.
NFC West.
Mm-hmm.
The voters, they voted for
yes,
the NFC West.
We started with the AFC South last week.
Yes.
And it makes perfect sense to go to the NFC
West
West after the AFC South.
And so now that we're looking at the NFC West, Johnny, I'm the tee off this time. So who do you got lined up for your NFC West list?
Thank you for making sure that we review the NFC West, because it makes perfect sense. We could review a Florida team like the NFC South and what's that whole thing there, but we're going with...
You got to let it sizzle.
Other
episodes.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense.
Let it sizzle.
Let's go with the most obvious pick in all of football in the AFC West here. So NFC West.
Take your time. Breathe.
So, no, because it's just ridiculous that we're even reviewing this one here. The San Francisco 49ers are winning this division. Okay, I can go over all I can go over everything in the division and go over, like I did with the last week, and I broke it down exactly how many wins and losses there. Who's winning this division? Is it going to be the Seahawks, Chris? Is it going to be the Rams? Is it going to be the Cardinals? No, it's going to be the San Francisco 49ers.
Since you're Captain Obvious in this one, we're both on the same page. Florida Man's on the same page that San Francisco is this division runs through them. But the bigger question is here now that free agency's done, now that the draft what's the 2, 3, and 4? Because we're ranking them, right? So I already go. We got San Francisco at the top.
Yeah.
Who's 2, 3, and 4?
Number two, Seattle. Number 3 is the Rams, and number 4 is obviously the Cardinals here. Seattle, you can always argue between Seattle and the Rams on who's going to be there, but with Stafford a year older, Puka is there. He's running some things there. Obviously, Kupp. Last year, I think it looked like to me, with Donald especially retiring, it was like their last gasp. The Rams' last push for like any type of relevancy. And so I don't see the Rams finishing second. I see Seattle moving up. Now they got new blood. Pete Carroll's gone. New blood in Seattle. So I see it doesn't matter. I don't see Seattle, the Rams, or the Cardinals making it to the playoffs. But I see in number 2, Seattle, 3 Rams, 4 the Cardinals. That's how it's going to be. But San Francisco. This is the easiest pick of any division in football. So thank you, Chris, for allowing us to go ahead and review the NFC West.
Listen, Johnny Cinco, we were going to have to do it regardless, so I'm glad that we got it out of the way now because it's a smart thing to do before the season gets hotter. But at any rate, San Francisco is number 1, but make no mistake, folks, the Los Angeles Rams are going to finish number 2. The fact that they are still the Super Bowl champions of that division, they still got the Super Bowl, they still have the Super Bowl quarterback, they still have the Super Bowl coach.
Years ago.
They still have this just like the Tampa Bay Bucks.
They lost their Hall of Fame division. They lost their best player.
They lost a huge piece. I give you that. But again, you got to beat them to not be number 2.
Yeah,
so it's the Niners, it's the Rams, and then it's the Cardinals. The Seattle Seahawks the Seattle Seahawks are number 4.
Minnie Murray is going to go ahead and bring them up? Okay.
Listen, folks. What you're going to see here in the Battle of the Birds is that the Cardinals now are healthy. Murray's going to be healthy from day one. They had a really good draft in Marvin Harrison Jr. He's got a lot to prove. Whereas the Seattle Seahawks with a new coach, it's not always you hit gold when you have a new coach, folks. Sometimes you got to take a step backwards before you can leap forward. And so, again, San Francisco is number 1. But where you and I are going to disagree, and I'm going to be right, you will be wrong, is that the Rams are number 2, the Cardinals are number 3, and the Seattle Johnny Seahawks are number 4. Florida Man Sports exclusive, baby. That's how it's going to go.
You give everything that I mentioned in terms of like new coach and everything else for Seattle, and you wanted to you said the same thing for the Cardinals. Like, the Cardinals, okay, somehow Minnie Murray is going to go ahead and actually do something here. Kyler Murray is not a good quarterback. He's 4'7" tall. He's not the guy. He was injured. They gave him the money, so they're stuck with him. This is the exact situation that the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to find themselves in. They overpay for a quarterback too soon, like they did with Murray, and now you're stuck with him. New coaching staff, and they're all scratching their heads saying, "Oh God, why do we have to deal with this guy?" But they're going to have to deal with him because the money's paid. So Curry's going to fall on his face. He's going to get injured before the year's up because he can't throw. He just likes to run, and he forgets that he's 4'7", and he's going to get destroyed and get injured. Yes, they pick up an elite, the best wide receiver in the draft, but who is throwing to him? A dude that looks like he's a middle school, like a jacked up middle schooler, is throwing him the ball. So it's.
Well, we may agree on that. He's still better than Trevor Lawrence. That says a lot about the fact.
I am not. You've lost your mind if you think I'm going to say that Minnie Murray is better than Trevor Lawrence. He is not. Okay. The numbers don't support it at all.
Okay.
Look it up. The numbers do not support that whatsoever.
Both are paid. Both are starting healthy this year.
Okay.
We'll see what this year. We'll see the stats at the end of the year and see what happens.
Fine. We can look at the stats in this year. Where I can look at the stats previously. Look at the stats, the 48 games. I said the stats that Trevor Lawrence has, and I'll post it on here. I'll find them and I'll post it on here. And I guarantee you that Murray doesn't have.
He won't post it.
No, Murray is not going to have better stats than that. Murray had one season where he had some flashes. He had some flashes of brilliance. He's thrown like Hail Mary passes. He had a lot of running plays, and what ended up happening? He got hurt because he wants to go and run, and he forgets that he's a child. He's a man-child that shouldn't be running, but he has to run out because he can't see over anybody in the pocket. So it's a joke that this dude's even in the NFL. How the heck did you pay this guy, Arizona? You guys are the second worst franchise next to Jacksonville.
They'll be the third best team in this division. That's saying something because the Seahawks are going to be number 4.
It's not saying much.
Listen, folks, before we wrap up, I know Johnny Cinco normally likes to get the callers that have posted online and ask questions. And so this week I do have one. I do have one, Johnny.
Ooh.
So before we wrap up the show, again, just want to remind everybody that we are streaming on all platforms.
Before we get to that, hey, props. Florida Panthers, baby. Florida Panthers.
Oh, no. We're going to get there. No, why are you clapping? Because you jinxed them? Because they were undefeated, and then I literally said on this show, don't jinx them, and now they've lost 2 in a row.
Florida Panthers are going to take it, baby.
This is the problem that we have, folks. But I digress. Here's the question from one of our
digress?
Yes,
you
one of our loyal fans. Ready?
Okay.
Florida Man Sports. Now that the Boston Celtics are NBA champions, we turn the page to next season and next week's NBA draft. What do our Florida teams need to do the week before the draft to get ready?
I love that question.
Right, what's our listeners? We have 4-year-olds listening to this show now?
First of all,
what is going on?
I love the question. What a beautiful question. What do the Orlando Magic and the Miami Heat need to do before the draft?
Oh, I know. Nobody cares.
Okay,
nobody cares.
I'll be very happy to answer that. And by the way,
nobody cares.
And by the way, happy birthday to my goddaughter for that wonderful question there. And I'm going to answer it. Here's what they need to do for Orlando. This is the week that you decide whether or not you're going to go after a big contract. This week, you're going to decide on Markelle Fultz.
Nobody cares.
This week, you're going to decide on the big 3 players that you either need to re-sign
You're not deciding
or
this
cut.
week. Not this week.
It is this week. And then here's why it's this week. Because the draft is going to dictate, which we'll talk about next week, but what you do in these next handful of days, Orlando, is going to decide whether you're going after a big contract or not. So, for example, Johnny, Klay Thompson, if you're going to go after Klay Thompson, you need Klay Thompson money. So this next handful of days, we're going to see if Orlando re-signs Markelle Fultz. If Orlando re-signs their core talent that they want to bring back, then that tells you they're not going to be going after big contracts. If they don't, look out. Orlando's going to make a splash this year.
Listen, Orlando,
Miami.
It's still, it doesn't matter.
Go ahead.
Orlando, they don't like to spend money. We know the ownership that we have. They don't want to spend any money. They have the money to spend this offseason. They have it. They don't need to wait this week to decide if we're going to spend money or not. First of all, if they re-sign Fultz, that tells me everything I need to know, that the Orlando Magic are not interested in winning. Fultz did not play to the level that warrants any type of contract extension, any type of re-signing or anything. He's one of the primary reasons we lost in the NBA playoffs in the first round there, because he couldn't shoot whatsoever. Thompson, okay, listen, you get Thompson at a good price. Thompson doesn't deserve max dollars. Listen, he's not the same player he used to be. But if you can sign him,
Johnny, regardless of what your opinion is, the numbers are there. Just like Trevor Lawrence gets overpaid. So again,
you're going to pay him money. He's going to pay.
This next
but
handful
not max
days,
dollars. You tell me Klay Thompson deserves max?
Somebody's going to.
Does Klay Thompson deserve max dollars?
No, but it doesn't mean he won't get overpaid.
I'm not talking about get overpaid. It's not max dollars.
So then this is going to be the definition. This week, this is what the Magic decide. Now move on to Miami. If they don't do anything, they have $65 million of cap space, a max contract. If they re-sign those pieces that I mentioned earlier, they go down to 49, which means they're not going to be able to get a max contract player. So that's what Orlando's going to have to decide this week before the draft.
It's Paul George is available. I don't think he's the right fit for Orlando. I think Klay Thompson, as long as it's not a max contract, because we need shooter.
That's the first.
We need a shooter.
The first logical thing you said with Paul George. Good job.
Anyway, I think Klay is the dude, but not max dollars. We're not overpaying like we've done. The problem with the Orlando Magic is that Orlando Magic don't pay, and then when they do pay, they overpay for mediocre talent.
Can you do me a favor and put on the thing here that you keep repeating yourself from the 90s?
So anyway,
you're so hurtful with Shaq happening.
So anyway,
keep repeating
so
yourself.
Any Magic fan knows the truth. You have the fanboy here who's like, no, they're going to win the championship every year.
Miami, Johnny will like this one. For Miami, here's what Miami needs to do these next handful of days. Absolutely nothing. And here's why. Mm-hmm. One, you can't afford to. You don't have the cap space to do anything. Two, I said this a couple episodes ago, Johnny, going back into the draft. LeBron, get Bronny James, get LeBron James back to Miami. That should be your focus.
Anyway, Miami trade Butler and move on some things. Butler, it's his last year coming up. This is his last year.
You're saying trade Butler?
Trade Jimmy Butler.
Wow.
It's time to move on. It's time to move on from Jimmy Butler. You at this point, you've got the best out of him already. The best is out of him now. It's just going to be an older Jimmy Butler. You saw last year he let you down. He wasn't available for you in the playoffs there. So other teams may think he will be. So if you can go ahead and get a first-round pick for him, it's time to move on from Jimmy Butler and then go from there. Whether I'm even fine with picking up somebody like a Paul George from Miami. Even pick up a Klay Thompson from as a free agent there. Those key players that are available, pick them up. But it's time to move on. Pick up a first-round pick, whether it's this year or next year, for Jimmy Butler. But it's time to move on from it. We're going to see, once and for all, by himself, if your boy, Tyler Hero, is really the man. Because he had a decent year. Still, I think we would have had a better year with Lillard. But it's time to see what Hero can actually do. But pair him with a Paul George, pair him with a Klay Thompson. But Jimmy Butler, his best days are behind him. Get your first-round pick. Do what the Celtics did. They got rid of Garnett. They got rid of Paul Pierce. They gave him to the Brooklyn Nets for so many first-round picks. And then what happened? They just went downhill. It's time to move on from him. Don't wait too long. This is his last year. You're not going to re-sign him. Move on from Jimmy Butler.
A very interesting take from a not very much interesting guy. Listen, folks, we're just so excited as the NFL season continues to grow here. The draft is next week, so we did jump ahead a little bit when we were talking about relocation of teams and all that, but that's just because we're excited here at Florida Man Sports. So much more coming your way. As always, he's Johnny. I'm Christian. We out, y'all.
Adios.